Hello, everyone, and welcome to the ASO Conversation series. I am your host, Tom Moore. I'm Director of Marketing for the Akron Symphony. And our special guest today is Jenny Robinson, who plays the piccolo and flute with the orchestra and has been with the ASO since 2015. Welcome, Jenny. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Tom. How are you?
Oh, pretty good. You know, it's the start of a new year. Hopefully, we're one day closer to being able to actually go out and put another performance, have a live performance in front of an audience again, which would be
Yes,
nice.
I'm very much hoping that happens as soon as possible.
Definitely. So let's kind of start a little bit. We're going to turn the clock back just a little bit to start here with. And for people who might not be familiar with the way a musician um, earns a role in the orchestra, can you talk a little bit about the audition process and, how it went for you?
Yes, well, it's completely different from a lot of typical job interviews that you would take. Say, if you're applying for an office position or management or something like that, you go in and do an interview and they see you, they talk to you, get an idea of your skill set and everything. But in an orchestra audition, it is for the most part anonymous. So you show up to the audition and you'll typically walk into a larger room. Maybe there'll be about 10 flutists warming up and they all sound amazing, which can make it pretty intimidating. So you're usually assigned a number in that large room. So they'll have maybe 5 or 10 people per hour of each round of the day, and they'll go on for hours, sometimes days of all preliminary rounds. So say I'm assigned number 42 or so. So then after you warmed up and heard all the amazing flutists, they usually take you to a smaller room where you get to do your own kind of private warm up. And then when the time draws near for your audition time, they take you on stage. So you have to kind of wait backstage, and it kind of gets in your head because you hear the person before you playing, and everybody's good, but from behind the door, it hides any type of flaw or anything that could be happening. So they all sound even more amazing. So that kind of gets in your head. So then you're kind of wait for that person to finish, and then you have to go on stage and play the exact same excerpts that that person just played. And you'll either from that round, you'll either get advanced. You finish a round, the person will come in and say, okay, so and so, this number, that number has advanced. If your number's not called, you go home. But if your number is called, you stay and do another round, 2, 3 rounds, depending on how many rounds they have. So then usually orchestras have the final round out in the open. So you're finally exposed and you see who's playing. I've been on orchestra committees where I'm listening to auditions. It's always interesting to put a face to the number, and it's good to know that it is always totally anonymous and fair. You really don't know who's playing till the final. And sometimes it's good to, I think it's good to have the finals open because usually you have to perform with a member of the orchestra and kind of work together. And that's very, very hard to do if the person's screened. So for example, in my final round of the Akron Symphony audition, I had to play with Barb O'Brien, the principal flutist, and kind of see how we played together because that's what we're doing in the orchestra. We play together in the section. So you can kind of see, like, everybody's good, but you have to see who plays the best together and if it's a good fit or not. So I played with Barb and thought we blended well, and she made it very easy. She was very personable and easy to play with. She's a great player, so that helped, and I felt more comfortable and was happy that I won that particular audition so I could join the Akron Symphony.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much the gist of it.
Okay. Yeah, actually, I recently did one of these interviews with Barb, and she's a lot of fun. So I can
Yes, I
imagine
saw
that
it.
she
I
was.
knew hers would be good. I'm like, man, that's a tough act to follow.
So, can you share with us a little bit about, you play both the flute and the piccolo, but what is it about the piccolo? Why the piccolo as opposed to the flute?
Well, despite my voice, I've always been drawn to high sounds. People that see me in the middle of the orchestra that have never talked to me come up to me and I say, oh, hi, I'm Jenny. They're like, that is not the voice I expected to come out of you. I'm 5'1", not a big person. So, but for some reason, I just like the sound. I was drawn to the sound of the flute in school because it was high and it gets the melody and you could hear it. I like being heard, I guess. And the piccolo, you could always hear even more because it's so high. Like in John Williams movies and soundtracks, you can kind of hear like E.T. or Star Wars, any of those, you can hear the shrill piccolo just wailing on all the fast stuff. So that really appealed to me to be able to play that, and it always just sounded impressive. And it's so small and cute, and I just thought it was cute.
So no harp was in your future.
No, it's very portable. Sometimes I lose it. Actually, on an educational video I made for Akron, I misplaced it and it was right in front of me, but that did not go as planned. But yes, it's very portable.
I know sometimes when we actually do have concerts and I'm walking in on concert night and I see all the musicians coming in, especially with, in the bad weather that we get in the winter months, I feel bad for some of the,
Yes.
you guys are walking in with just, people coming with their violin cases or your very small case, and there's people with larger instruments. I'm like, man, that's a rough life.
Yes, that would be. And parking far away and different places and buying an extra plane ticket for your double bass or cello, that would be rough.
So, all right. So you talked, let's go back even further now. And let's go back to the beginning of how you kind of started with your early experiences in music. Take us back. How did you get started playing just, music and get involved with, with the flute, the piccolo, or did you start on a different instrument?
Well, I actually grew up in Cuyahoga Falls, which is where I live now. And
That's where I grew up.
oh, really? Awesome.
Oh my gosh.
Nice suburb. I like it. But so they had a school band program. They did not have an orchestra program, but they had a really good school band program. So no string instruments. So I was in the fifth grade, maybe it was fourth, maybe fifth. But whenever I was just to the age where I was going to start an instrument, this woodwind quintet came to my school. It was DeWitt Elementary School, and gave a little kind of educational performance. And immediately I heard the flute and I wanted to play that. I just liked the sound. I liked that it was high, it had the melodies, and there's no question. I want to play that instrument. So I didn't even really know about the piccolo, but that was the highest one I saw at the time. So I really wanted to play it. But I think it was maybe a short time after that in the fifth grade. I think it was my school music class, but they asked, you have the option to do choir or band. And I said, yeah, band. And they asked what instruments we wanted to play. And they had all these instruments, and it was mainly low brass to kind of let us try out, like tuba, trombone. And I said, no, I want to play the flute. And the music teacher said, oh, we really need tubas. We really need trombones. Everybody is playing the flute. We have all these people signed up to play the flute. And I said, well, I want to play it anyway. So then ended up all the people that had signed up, I think most of them dropped except one or two others. They quit the flute. So I guess I started in fifth grade through the school program.
Okay. What is it that you've talked about how the sound, is what appealed to you to the beginning. What is it that you really do? What is it that you like about playing your particular instrument?
Well, as I said, it's portable, so that's awesome. And no instrument's cheap, but it is a lot cheaper than the string instruments. I mean, those can get ridiculously expensive, and the professional historic violins are crazy, but flutes are not as much as a lot of other instruments. And the upkeep is less, I would say. We don't need to buy reeds. You don't have to make reeds, which is very time consuming. So I like those things. I guess it's just a low maintenance instrument, low maintenance, portable, but obviously I love the sound of it. So that's number one.
And what, now that you've been, in the orchestra for, you're going on 6 years now, and I would imagine you had some experience with, playing in orchestras before that. What is it that you like about being a member of an orchestra? What is it that you like about playing with such a large group?
Well, non-musicians say this to me all the time. They say, you're so lucky you get to do what you love for a living. And sometimes I think, well, it's not all rosy, but really it's true. I mean, I genuinely get to do what I love for a living. So that is the best part, number one. But in particular, Akron, I love the flute section. I love the other two flutists. We get along great. We play well together. And I love the other woodwinds and strings. It's just a very nice group of people, hard workers, and it's personality wise, it's everybody gets along really well. But I actually love when we play at the Akron Civic Theater. That has very great acoustics and it's very historic and resonant. So that's one of my favorite spots to play. And I love the community involvement and the kind of diversity in programming with Akron. We do the Gospel Meets Symphony, which is it's actually probably my favorite concert of the year. It's the crowd gets so into it and it's awesome. My dad and like 12 of his friends go to it every year, and then we always go out to dinner before. But then the holiday pops, and of course the classical programs, which we get sometimes singers and dancers to do kind of different things on the stage while we play these classical programs. So I mean that makes it different than the other orchestras I play with. So I guess
Yeah,
lots.
especially talking about gospel. I remember when I first got hired, my wife and I, we've lived here almost. I was born and raised here, and so is my wife. And except for a short time after college, we've always lived in Northeast Ohio, and we had never heard of the Gospel Meets Symphony concert until I got hired with the orchestra. And I remember sitting there that first night after the concert was over. She turned to me and she's like, "Why have we never heard of this? And we're coming to this every single year." It's
Yes.
just one of those experiences that if you've never been there, it's incredible, just the energy in the room and just
Yeah.
the way the orchestra works with the choir, and everything just goes. It's a fun night, and everyone, if you've never been, you're really missing out on something.
Yes, as you said, it's very hard to describe the energy and just it's so uplifting. So it's definitely my favorite.
So you talked about, you kind of started on that traditional path in elementary school, picking up an instrument, and obviously you've continued on with it. When did it kind of first start to come into your mind that, hey, you know what, I can make music be my career?
It was very early on. I think I was age 12. Um, Actually, when I started at age 10 in the fifth grade, I was terrible. I was I was not a fast learner. It took me, I think it was 2 weeks to even get a sound out of the instrument. It was all air. I just couldn't even get a tone. And the teacher just had me only use the head joint and not put it together with the rest of the instrument because I couldn't even get an initial sound. And I think one day it finally clicked that I could get a sound, but after that, the fingerings were very slow. And I think my first song I ever learned was Hot Cross Buns, but that took a long time. Okay, what's the D fingering? 10 minutes. Okay, now a C. So it was very tricky initially, but I think I wasn't very good about practicing at first because I just didn't like it. I thought, oh, it's cool to carry around this flute case. I don't know why I thought that was cool, but I did. I liked carrying it around and saying I played the flute, but but then when I finally started practicing, it clicked and it made me enjoy it more because I was learning and playing songs, like recognizable songs, and the notes were coming faster and I could put it together. So then I think it was age 12 is where I started actually learning more fingerings. And age 13, I had actual formal private lessons. Um, the teacher I had, it was through a school band program. I've told this story to some people, but my parents didn't tell me this story until years later. But apparently, when I was 10 years old, I was so slow at learning the flute. The teacher called my parents and said, "Yeah, she's just not getting it. She is so slow. She should take up knitting." So, but my parents were nice in that they didn't tell me that till years later. And in fact, they bought me a new flute that Christmas just for motivation. And I was actually going to quit the flute. And I thought, well, they got me this nice flute. I got to stick with it. So I decided to stick with it. And that's when I started practicing it and getting better. And then I think it was, I was either, I think I was 13 in the eighth grade when I practiced a lot more than I did in the fifth grade. And I learned how to play Flight of the Bumblebee, which is like very fast. So it's kind of night and day from Hot Cross Buns. So I played it at a solo and ensemble contest, is which you learn some solos and play them for a rating in middle school and high school, and got the highest marks. So the band director at the time said, "So do you want to play Flight of the Bumblebee with a school band as a solo, like a soloist with the band accompaniment?" And I said, "Sure." So I decided to do that. And it was eighth grade. We rehearsed it, and I didn't know this was going to happen, but my 5th grade teacher showed up to the rehearsal, and the one that said I was so slow I should take up knitting. And so I put the flute up to my lips, started just blasting it out hyper speed, and he literally took his glasses off and dropped them on the floor. So that was like night and day. This was the girl that was like slowest student I've ever taught to playing Flight of the Bumblebee in the 8th grade. And from then on was when I decided I really want to do this for a living. I can't imagine doing anything else. And I was very young and I didn't understand the life of a musician, but I just knew that that's what I wanted to do. So I guess to age 12, 13.
Yeah, that's good, because you just never know where you're going to get your inspiration or your motivation from on something like that. And maybe part of you clicked that maybe if it's not you weren't thinking about, I'm going to show him that I can do this, or the
Yeah, I
fact, like you said,
definitely love it.
mom and dad supported me, and were showing me support, so I'm going to reward them for their faith in me. And then have you ever has he ever come to one of our concerts now that you're a professional musician?
I'm not sure.
It's like, I'll show you, come here.
Yeah, I don't want to say anything, but I'm not sure if he's still with us, but
Okay.
but I'd have to check on that.
So what are some of your favorite composers or pieces of music? Like when you get the schedule for the year, what really is like, oh my gosh, I really am excited, or I really hope this is going to be on the playlist?
Well, my tastes are kind of biased in that I like the music with the good piccolo parts, high piccolo parts. So I always like when Shostakovich is programmed because it has very fast high parts, and that's my favorite, just playing high and fast. But before I was into the piccolo, I've always loved Stravinsky, and I've always loved Russian music. I don't know why, maybe because it's so fast and crazy. It's just fun. But Stravinsky, Shostakovich, but I also love Ravel and Debussy. That was kind of an inspiration. When I was in high school, I got an old recording of Daphnis and Chloe by Ravel, and I heard the middle section has this crazy flute part where at the time I thought it was one flute playing, and it's just nonstop, like, and I was just in awe. I was just awestruck, like, how can somebody possibly do that? And years later, when I got the music, I realized it was the entire flute section trading off, like piccolo, the flutes, the alto, kind of going back and forth. But it's meant to sound like one flute. So I was so impressed. But I just love the orchestration and just the lush chords of the French music, like Ravel. So French and Russian are probably my 2 favorite kind of French Impressionist music and Shostakovich era Russian music.
Yeah, I understand, and I'm with you on the Russian music. Every time we've done it in the time that I've been here, it's real. I always walk out of the hall and just impressed by what goes on that stage. But whenever we do the Russian music from a Russian composer, I'm like, okay, yeah, I really can't wait for that concert to come around, because there's just something, there's just something in there that I'm not sure what the word is I'm looking for, but you definitely feel it when you're listening to it.
The slow stuff just has this like turmoil and just a sense of everything Shostakovich was going through at the time, but just a lot of turmoil.
So we've talked a little bit about how you enjoy playing holiday and you play in gospel. Are there any real memorable performances, or something that really just stands out from your time here with the ASO?
There's a lot. It's hard to pinpoint, but because I'm kind of biased toward like Stravinsky, maybe it was 2 or 3 years ago, the ASO did the complete ballet by Stravinsky of the Firebird Suite. And that was the first time I'd ever played the Firebird ballet with dancers and everything. It was so exciting because orchestras play the Firebird Suite all the time, which is just the reduced version for only orchestra without the dancers. So to play the extended version, like with all the extra parts and see the choreography on stage was amazing. And it was just music I love, but more of it and with the visual stuff. So that was amazing. That's probably my favorite performance with the ASO.
Yeah, that was definitely a fun one.
Yeah.
So outside of, rehearsing, which, is a key part, obviously, of a performance, is there anything special you do on the night of a performance, or just to kind of help prepare yourself for, that actual, when you're ready to go on stage? Any, you have to have a special meal, or is there any kind of little ritual you go through the day, or is it just kind of like, all right, I did my work, let's go?
Well, for me, it kind of depends on how stressed out I am about the performance. If it's as a piccolo player, I don't play all the time. So if it's an easy thing where I'm sitting out and then just playing something that's not hard and I'm not stressed about it all, I don't really care what I do before. I'm just all laid back. Or if it's super easy pops, I'm just kind of chilled. So there's no particular ritual. But if it's something I'm very stressed out about, particularly if it's modern music where it's hard to put together with the other parts. If there's a recording I have on whether it's YouTube or a CD or anything like that, I'll listen to it. Usually I get to the venue very early because I'm paranoid about issues with parking or anything like that. Usually I'm like one of the first cars there for the orchestra people because it's kind of a recurring nightmare I have of being late for a concert or something, stuck in traffic. It's never happened, but I think all musicians have that kind of nightmare. So I get there very early, and sometimes I just sit in my car and listen to the recording of it and look at my music and see how my part fits in with the other parts. Because if I'm just preparing my part, it's not realistic with how it's going to sound in the orchestra. So I kind of just imagine that I'm playing it and listening to it at the same time. And that really helps. And I'm not one of those people that has to kind of go off and be in my own world. I'd say I'm an introvert, but it does help me to talk to people before to kind of relax me. If I'm just left to my own devices, I really overthink things and it stresses me out more. So I just kind of pretend I'm not going to perform because it stresses me out. Just try to be natural.
Right. That's good to know because, I'll always come backstage before a concert, I usually pop back there a couple of times just to kind of like walk through with everything going on. And I never know if I should go up and talk to anybody or not, because I'm always, this is the most important time, for all the musicians. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to get in their space. I don't want to bother them if, they're really, getting prepared for this. So now at least I know there's a friendly face if I'm back there,
Yeah.
I can say, hey, and I know that I won't be bothering you.
If I'm stressed, I pretend to be chilled. No, I know what you mean because I feel that same way if there's a guest soloist where sometimes I want to say, oh, you sound amazing in the rehearsals, but I don't want to stress them out or anything.
Mhm.
So, because I don't know what that particular person prefers, if they want to just zone out or whatever, but I know what you mean.
Yeah, you never know what might be in their writer too. It's like nobody's allowed to talk to me beforehand.
Yeah.
Don't make eye contact.
Yeah. Everyone has their own rituals, I guess.
So outside of, you've talked a little bit about how, you'll listen to the music that you're going to be performing sometime to help you get prepared. What's on your play? If we could see your playlist, what kind of music do you like outside of orchestral music?
Well, I listen to a lot of different stuff, like very random stuff.
Mhm.
I think like a lot of musicians for fun, I don't listen to a lot of classical music
Mhm.
because it's like I do it all the time, and sometimes it stresses me out if I imagine that I'm playing it and I think of if I hear a high B flat, I think, oh, I gotta lip up for that one. It's flat, and like I think of the mechanics of playing it when I'm listening to it. So I stay away from stuff that has a flute in it, particularly. So a lot of the stuff is just totally non-classical. I listen to a lot of old music like 40s jazz. I guess I like listening to music that I can sing to,
Mhm.
and you could probably tell I'm not a soprano, so I like listening to like Sarah Vaughan and like the Ella Fitzgerald types, Dinah Washington, and just kind of the old torch song type
Mhm.
stuff. But I love artists that write their own music, like
Mhm.
Lady Gaga. I listen to her even though it's very different from 40s jazz, and some local artists. And my brother and sister they actually write their own music, so I listen to them sometimes.
Mhm.
It's kind of nice to hear original songs. So
Yeah.
I listen when I run. I listen to Brazilian jazz because it's fast, so I kind of feel
Oh.
like I run faster because I have no idea what they're singing about, but it sounds happy and it's fast. It's upbeat. So I like Brazilian jazz for running.
Okay. Oh, yeah, that's interesting. And that's one of the things I always like, talking about with people is, because everybody kind of has the same sort of beginning of the answer. It's like, oh, I listen to so many different things. Like, well, yeah, when you think about it, we all have our favorites, but we all, do listen to a wide variety,
Yeah.
of music. So, but I haven't gone back as far as the 40s. I'll go back into the 60s, but I haven't gone quite as far back as you. But I might have to broaden my horizons here a little bit at some point.
Yeah. Well, they're remaking all the songs anyway, so
Mhm.
those songs are still popular. They're just updated versions.
Sure. Okay, so obviously we haven't been able to, unfortunately, put on full-scale concerts and public performances for quite some time, but you have been able to participate in some of our interlude season options. You talked about, we're doing this obviously today. You did an educational video for us on how to play the Piccolo. And then you also joined Barb O'Brien and Kyra Kester on doing the live stream performance from Jilly's Music Room. Talk a little bit about how that went.
That was a blast. That was a lot of work, but
Mhm.
it was so much fun. I rarely get to play flute trios. I got that acapella app late a couple months ago where I can record parts with myself, but it's not the same as playing with real people. So we had, I think it was 2 rehearsals,
Mhm.
and we all met up, and it wasn't hard to put stuff together. It just came together really, really easily. And I think it's because we're so used to playing together as a section, even though we haven't played together in months, but it was very easy to put together. A lot of it was fast technical music and some pop numbers, and it was a good mix. But I think for all of us, the thing was we weren't used to playing for that long nonstop. So it
Mhm.
was kind of tiring on the shoulder, on the hands, on the lips, especially when we all haven't been playing as much as we had in the symphony season. So that part was the biggest challenge, just the endurance of it
Mhm.
when we weren't used to it. So
Yeah, I remember it looked and it sounded really well, because I remember we actually put it on, because Jilly's broadcasted on YouTube, on their YouTube channel. And I
yeah,
remember putting it on our big screen TV, and it's still kind of fun. One, it sounded really well. Plus, it's like, I know all those people, they're on the TV. It's still kind of, there's still sort of that little bit of a wow factor when because sometimes I'll put our videos up on just on the TV on YouTube that we've made just for fun, and it's just, even though I was part of the editing process, and it's like, well, yeah, I just uploaded that video, I know that was there. It's still, there's still a little bit of a cool factor to seeing somebody I know. It's like, hey, they're up on TV.
yeah,
So, and I think it's kind of interesting too, when you talk about, and other musicians I've talked to have mentioned it, just kind of like the physical aspect of being able to play, an instrument. You talk about how, you have to, like, for that long time, hold it in a certain way and stuff. And I've always, in the back of my mind, I've always thought there has to be a market out there to create a fitness program specifically geared toward orchestral musicians, and by section, because you obviously have different muscle movements and different parts of your body that you have to use that a different member, somebody on a different instrument would do. And so I don't know, maybe might be a little bit of a side gig I'm going to
yeah,
build up here one of
definitely.
these days
I think
and
the
work.
lopsided instruments are the worst. Like with
Mhm.
flutists, we get the left shoulder issues having it's not natural to be walking around like that for hours. And violin, it's clarinets can get tendonitis and things, but
Mhm.
lopsided ones are very unnatural. So that part's rough.
So I don't know, right? If I get in touch with you pretty soon, I might be signing you up here to
Yes.
get a fitness
I'm
program
in.
going here. So I think just going through the list here, we've said a lot here today, but I don't know. What do you think? Have we said it all?
Oh,
Oh, I know. You talked a little bit about how you like to run. What other kind of any other kind of hobbies or interests that you have outside of music?
I feel like I should have taken up more during this quarantine, but apart from Netflix.
Okay, that's okay. That's a good question. What are we watching? What are we watching on Netflix?
uh I finished Schitt's Creek and Black Mirror. um I don't know if I was allowed to say the title of that. Sorry. You can
Oh, it's
edit it.
okay. No, 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 no.
That's the name of the show, though. um, but I just finished Cobra Kai, so I love that.
Yes. I haven't watched season 3 yet, so I
Yes,
haven't had a
it's so
chance.
good.
But I was surprised because obviously I'm old enough to remember seeing the original Karate Kid movies when they came out, and I
Yeah,
always liked them. And I thought this is going to be kind of silly. But
yeah.
then when you
I've
started watching it, it's like, oh my gosh, this is actually good. you know,
Yes, the
they're
references are amazing.
I know they're taking it serious, but they're not taking it too serious.
Yeah.
And, they're doing callbacks, but they've done enough to push the story along. And just some of the best parts of the conflict with the character of Johnny still being stuck in the 80s and him having to deal with the
Yes.
way people are now. And I was pleasantly surprised that, on one level, this isn't award-winning material here, but there's something wrong with a little bit of a guilty pleasure. And when they do it right, and they do it in I guess in a respectful way, I think that's what made it so much fun to watch.
Yes. It's
But
cheesy but lovable cheese.
yes, but no spoilers. I haven't seen season 3 yet.
Yes, I heard it's renewed to season 6.
So, oh my gosh, that's going to be
Yes, I'm excited.
they better move it along before they get too old that they can't
I know.
do those moves anymore.
Yeah, they can always do them.
All right, so we run, then we sit and we watch Netflix. Anything
Well, I took up the guitar. I'm
oh,
very
that's
bad.
nice.
I'm having flashbacks of taking up knitting, but I'm not very good at the guitar, but I've learned the basic chords.
Mhm.
So I still have work to do, but my goal is just to play some simple songs. I can play Wagon Wheel, Knocking on Heaven's Door, but my repertoire is pretty limited, but I'm hoping to learn some more elaborate chords. But yeah, that's kind of a side hobby I've had.
All right, well, that's good. Hey, we all got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
That's been 2020 was the year of learning new skills for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
So all right, now have we said it all?
I think so.
Okay, so all right.
The dog hasn't wandered into the picture.
Oh, that's too bad. Everybody likes we always
He's
like when the
messed
pets
up.
make a cameo. So all right, thank you for joining us today, Jenny. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Thank you to everyone for watching. We will be back soon with another edition of the ASO Conversation series. Until then, everybody, please stay safe.